It's the International Soccer Preview. We are Soccer Files Canada. Welcome to Series 32, looking at the players of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. This episode is looking at the players of Mexico. Part 1, the candidates. Here we go. Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccer Files Canada. I'm Kevin and this is Series 32 on the players of the 2026 World Cup. This episode covers Mexico's players. We've done mediacast for the players of most of the teams in the World Cup here, and actually most of them within the last couple of years. So if you're interested in looking into a team before we put out the mediacast for this tournament, you can check out our back catalogue using the addresses on the screen or in the show notes. We're doing this mediacast in two parts. So part 1 today is a look at the candidates for the squad and their likelihood of making it. We're going to examine the participation of players in games over the recent period, as well as a couple of other factors to categorize them into definite, likely, possible but unlikely, and seemingly off the squad. And we'll go into more detail introducing the players we think likely to reach the final squad, and less, perhaps even just the names of players unlikely to get there. Part 2 will come out when the squad lists are released and the final squad selected, probably in late May or early June. And at that time, we'll go back over the list we create here and see who made it and who didn't. We'll also cover other things like predicted starters, updating injuries and surprise selections, that kind of stuff. So let's look at what we're doing in this media cast here. Section 1, we're going to begin with some team information. In section 2, that's the main part of the media cast. We're going to go through the candidates position by position and let you know their likelihood of selection. And in section 3, we're going to review what we did in section 2 quickly, and we have a couple of concluding matters there. So let's get into it here and begin with some information on the team. We're going to look at their recent games. Actually, we did Mexico recently for the 2025 Gold Cup. So that is kind of our starting point for our look here. And they played 6 games in the Gold Cup. They won that tournament. And since then, they've played 6 games, 6 friendlies in the fall of September 2025. So we're not going to use the Gold Cup in terms of recent participation, but we will kind of refer back to it. So we only really have 6 games of recent participation because we're only going up, our research only covers till the end of 2025 in this media cast. In the part 2, we will use the games. They actually play some games in January and February, as well as, like most teams in the world, friendlies in March of 2026. A few teams will kind of finish their qualifying in March, but most teams in the world have a couple of friendlies there. And so, yes, just our 6 games, friendlies in September and October, November 2026. So we're going to just look at the formations there over those 6 games. Well, we'll include in our count the formations in the world in the 2025 Gold Cup here. So yeah, we won't go into extensive details. What we'll do is just let you know in summary that in 58% of those games, or 7 of the 12, they used a 4-3-3 formation. So I think for this period, that's a good way to kind of envision Mexico. But they did use that only 58% of the time. They also used a 4-2-3-1 formation in 3 of the 12 games, or 25% of the games. And finally, a 4-4-2 formation in 2 of the games, or 17%. But both of those formations were the first 2 games of the Gold Cup. So it looks like their more recent formation is the 4-3-3. In fact, they used that in both the October and November games. So what does that tell us about Mexico? Well, it tells us that they use a three-man central defense. Sorry, a two-man central defense in all of the games. They always use two-man central defense with a right back and a left back. Up at the forward line, they use a single forward in 83% of the games. And then a two-man forward in 17% of the game. So that 4-3-3 formation looks like it's three forwards, but most of the time, actually, it's a left attacking and a right attacking midfielder playing as the left and right forward. So we consider that 4-3-3 formation a single centre forward there. Okay, so there we go. That's it. The only other thing we want to do in section one here is look at their upcoming games. And, well, actually, they have played a couple of games in, sorry, there's a graphic on here that shouldn't be there. They have played a couple of games in January and February. Those are complete, even though they're not part of our count in the media cast here, but I will let you know these were fairly experimental in terms of trying out either kind of substitute type players or even bringing in new players, kind of a recruitment game. We'll talk about that more when we get to part two. But two games there in January 2025, and then a game in February there. We're not really interested in the result. We're just thinking more about the players here. And excuse me, I just need to do something before I post on the YouTube here. In March, those games haven't been played at the time we're doing the media cast here. We have two games in March. The first one is in Mexico and it's against Portugal, and the second one is in USA against Belgium. So we will cover those in part two of the media cast. And then when we get to pre-tournament friendlies, they have scheduled three of those already. So the first one, May 22nd, is in Mexico, and that's against Ghana. The second one on May 30th is in the USA, that's against Australia. And the third one is on June 4th. Also in Mexico, and that will be against Serbia. So Mexico will play their group stage games at home. I think after that, though, they're probably going to be playing their games in the USA. So maybe that's why they've scheduled at least one of those, or one of those pre-tournament friendlies in the USA. So that's it. And again, we will cover what we can of those upcoming games when we get to part two. Just a note that it is the same manager throughout, and actually that leads us nicely into section two, because that's where we start by talking about the manager during the period. So let's take a look. It's Javier Aguirre, and I'll give you a little bit of history. I'll just throw a name on the graphic here. We'll put Jaime Lozano's name, and then I'll explain why I did that. So we have Jaime Lozano as the manager of Mexico going into the 2024 Copa America. They were the pot one team there, but they didn't make it out of the group stage. That's a bit of an embarrassment for Mexico, and Jaime Lozano was dismissed from the job. In comes Javier Aguirre, actually in his third stint as the Mexico manager, and he led them through Nations League 2024 and 25. They won that title in March of 2025, and continued on to manage them through the Gold Cup in 2025, and they also won that title. So he's been pretty successful delivering the expectations of Mexico, which is winning in CONCACAF in short. Let's take a look at Javier Aguirre. As I said, in his third stint with the national team, he was a player himself from he was with the national team actually from 1983 to 92, and had 56 caps and 12 goals for Mexico. He was a midfielder. I won't go through his club history, but I will talk a little about his managerial history. So since 2024, in his third stint with Mexico, prior to that, he coached teams not only in Spain, in Mexico, but also in Spain. His second stint with Mexico was in 2009 and 2010, and his first stint back in 2001, 2002. He has also managed the Egyptian national team and the Japanese national team. He led them through the Asian Cup there, and he led Egypt through the 2019 African Cup there. So a very experienced manager, Javier Aguirre, and we think he's a definite candidate because we don't see them changing at this point. All right, let's move on to goalkeepers, and I'm going to begin by listing the candidates as I did with managers, and then we'll come back and kind of introduce especially the main ones. So we have a definite candidate in Luis Malagon, and also a definite candidate in Raul Rangel. At the likely level, we have Carlos Acevedo, and then at the possible but unlikely veteran goalkeeper Guillermo Ochoa, and also at the possible but unlikely Carlos Moreno, and finally, seemingly off the squad, Julio Gonzalez. Let's go back and take a look at those players. And we'll get more information on the ones that seem likely. So Luis Malagon, a definite candidate. He has been with Mexico since 2023 and has 19 caps and no goals. And sorry, I'm just clarifying his age here. He is 29 years old and plays for Club America in Mexico. I'm just going to call them America. I think it's properly pronounced Club America, but it looks like Club America to an English speaker. He's been with America since 2022 and with other Mexican teams prior to that, Necaxa and Morelia. Luis Malagon was part of the 2023 Gold Cup squad. That was his first tournament. He was just on the bench there. Surprisingly, though, he was not selected for the Copa America in 2024, even though he seemed a definite candidate there. But he came back for the 2025 Gold Cup and was a starter in that tournament. So recently the starter. Since then, he started only half of the games, 3 of the 6 games in the fall of 2024. He was on the bench for the 3 others. But we'll talk about starters in part 2. For now, we're just looking at candidates, and we see Malagon as a definite candidate. Also a definite candidate is Raul Rangel. And he's been with Mexico an even shorter time, just since 2024. He has 3 caps for the national team and is 26 years old. And he plays for Guadalajara in Mexico since 2020. He was with their youth club as well. Raul Rangel was first selected for a tournament for the 2024 Copa America. He was on the bench there and also on the bench for the 2025 Gold Cup. Like Malagon, he started 3 of their 6 games since then and was on the bench for 3 others. So those 2 seem to be sharing duties, starting duties. Let's go to our likely candidate, Carlos Acevedo. He's been with Mexico longer than the other 2 since 2021, but just 6 caps to his name, and he's 31 years old. 30 years old, and he's been with Santos Laguna in Mexico since 2017. He was with their youth club too. Kind of came on our radar for the 2022 World Cup. He wasn't selected for that, and for the 2023 Gold Cup, Carlos Acevedo was injured. He was a backup keeper, though, in the 2024 Copa America. That's his only tournament because he was not selected for the 2025 Gold Cup. He returned actually after that cup, after a 15-month absence in October of 2025, and didn't start any of the 4 games in October or November, but he was on the bench for all 4 matches. So we're seeing Carlos Acevedo as a likely candidate here, and that's partly because Guillermo Ochoa, the veteran keeper, seems to be off the team now. I won't go into great detail on him. He's been with Mexico since 2005 with 152 caps, and really has been their starting keeper for tournaments over many years here. He was last starting in the 2023 Gold Cup, captain of the team there, and started and finished all games, but it looked like maybe his time was kind of coming to an end because he wasn't selected for the Copa America in 2024. It's therefore a bit of a surprise that he was selected for the 2025 Gold Cup, but he was just on the bench there. Luis Malagon starting there. And that was the last time Guillermo Ochoa appeared. So hasn't appeared or hasn't been called up for any of the fall games. So still a possible candidate for the World Cup here, but we think it's unlikely. He is, after all, 41 years old. Guillermo Ochoa. The other possible but unlikely candidate is Carlos Moreno. We won't go into too much detail because it is unlikely. He was on the bench for the first two games in September of 2025, but then not called up for the last four matches. So it looks like Acevedo kind of taking over as the third string keeper ahead of Carlos Moreno and Guillermo Ochoa. Finally, we have Julio Gonzalez. He seems to be off the squad now. He was a starting keeper in the 2024 Copa America, but hasn't been called up since then. So Julio Gonzalez seemingly off the squad. All right, that's goalkeepers. And we move on to the defense, and we'll start with central defenders here. And we'll list the candidate. We have a definite candidate in Cesar Montes. And also a definite candidate in Johan Vazquez. We have no candidates at the likely level, so we go down to possible candidates. The first is Ramon Juarez, and then we have Jesus Orozco, and that's it. So not many candidates here. We do have a couple at the possible but unlikely level: Gilberto Sepulveda, and Juanjo Purata. Both of those possible but unlikely. And then two more at the seemingly off the squad level: Alexis Pena and Victor Guzman. Let's go to the top of the list and take a look at Cesar Montes. And he's been with Mexico since 2017 with 66 caps and 4 goals. An interesting story about that I'll tell you shortly. Cesar Montes is 29 years old. Actually 28 years old. His birthday hasn't come yet. And Cesar Montes has been with the Mexico team since the 2017 Gold Cup. He was a sub in that, but not selected for the 2018 World Cup. He has been selected for every tournament since then. No, sorry, he missed the 2021 Gold Cup. Otherwise, he's been selected for all tournaments. Actually, by the time the World Cup 2022 came around, he was a starter for the team, and for the most part has been since. The interesting thing is, in addition to starting at least the first 3 games, the first 5 games of the no, he was suspended for 1 game in game 4. So 5 of the 6 games in the Gold Cup, he became a scorer, having scored only 1 goal in his career. That's probably around 55 caps. He scored 3 goals in the 2025 Copa America, so suddenly became a scorer. That was great. Since that Gold Cup, he started 4 of their 6 games. He was on the bench for 1 and not selected for 1 other. But again, partly because they don't seem to have a lot of candidates here, we see Cesar Montes as a definite candidate. We actually think they will use those January and February games to try to beef up the pool of players here, because the number of players we're looking at for central defenders is a bit thin. Usually they bring 5 or 6 to the cup, but we only have 4 at the possible level or above. Let's look at the second definite candidate here, Johan Vazquez. He's been with Mexico since 2019 with 42 caps and 1 goal. He is 27 years old and plays with Genoa in Italy since 2022. And was in Mexico for the most part before that. Okay, I'm going to continue on here, even though my phone is ringing. My secretary will grab it. I think I'm being phoned to ask if I'll manage a team through the World Cup, but I'm busy with this podcast, so I won't be able to do that. Johan Vazquez, even though he was with Mexico since 2019, it was the 2022 World Cup that was his first tournament. He was just on the bench for that one, but by the time the Gold Cup 2023 came around, he was a starter and has been a starter in all the tournaments since. That would be the 2023 Gold Cup, the 2024 Copa America, and the 2025 Gold Cup. Actually, he wasn't on the bench for the first game there, but came in as a starter after that. Over the recent period, Johan Vazquez has started 5 of their 6 games, and he subbed in for the other one, and that's why we see him as a definite candidate here. As I said, no likely candidate, so we go down to the possible level where we find Ramon Juarez. He's been with Mexico since 2025 with 2 caps, and he is 25 years old. He plays for America in Mexico since 2019. Hasn't been called up for a tournament. He was on our radar back for the 2024 Copa America, but wasn't selected for that, and just on the preliminary squad for the recent Gold Cup. But he came back after the Gold Cup in October of 2025, didn't start any of the remaining 4 games, but he was on the bench for 2, but not selected for 2. So Ramon Juarez, just a possible candidate here. We probably should have put the next candidate, Jesus Orozco, ahead of him. I think I will on the list, because he does seem more likely than Ramon Juarez. Jesus Orozco has been with Mexico since 2023. He has 5 caps and no goals, and he's 23 years old. And plays for Cruz Azul in Mexico since 2025. Prior to that, he was with Guadalajara from 2020, and that was his youth club as well. He was actually on the preliminary squad for the 2023 Gold Cup, didn't make the squad there. But for the 2024 Copa America and the 2025 Gold Cup, he was a bench player. He actually did sub into 3 games in the recent Gold Cup there. Jesus Orozco started 1 of their 6 games since then in the fall of 2025, and was on the bench for 3, but not selected for 2 of those 6 matches. So Jesus Orozco, a possible candidate here. At the possible but unlikely level, we have firstly Gilberto Sepulveda. And again, not too much detail. His only tournament was the 2021 Gold Cup, where he was a sub, but he wasn't called up for the 4 tournaments since then. Not for the tournaments, but he was called up for the team. He last appeared on the bench in June of 2025, Sepulveda. And then the other possible but unlikely is Juanjo Purata. And he's new to the team, actually. Was on the preliminary squad for the 2025 Gold Cup and started 1 of their 6 games. Sorry, he wasn't selected for that cup, by the way, just the preliminary squad. But since then started 1 of the 6 games and was on the bench for 1, but not selected then for the last 4 matches. So Purata, Juanjo Purata looking possible but unlikely. And next we have Alexis Pena. We'll just give a short shift to these players because they're seemingly off the squad. Alexis Pena last appeared in June of 2024, and then we have Victor Guzman last appearing in September of 2024. Now we do have a couple of players who might come into central defence Israel Reyes, who will meet shortly, and midfielder Edson Alvarez sometimes do come back and play central defense. So there's a bit of cover in those players, but as I said, a bit thin for central defenders at this point. Okay, let's go over to left backs, and we begin with a definite candidate in Jesus Gallardo. We'll come back and look at him. We have a likely candidate in Mateo Chavez, and then we go down to seemingly off the squad, where we have Jesus Alberto Angulo. Sorry, not seemingly off the squad, but possible but unlikely. Two candidates seemingly off the squad, though, are Gerardo Arteaga and Brian Gonzalez. Let's go back to the top and take a look at Jesus Gallardo, a real veteran for Mexico. He's been with them since 2016. He has 114 caps and 2 goals and is 32 years old now. He moved to Toluca in Mexico in 2024. He's been with them since then. Prior to that, he was with Monterrey in Mexico for 6 years, and then with Pumas, Pumas in Mexico from 2014 to 2018. Way back in 2017, he was on the preliminary squad for the Confederation Cup in 2017, and really has been part of all tournaments since then, except for the 2024 Copa America. I wouldn't say they sent a B team to that tournament. It looks like that from what I've told you so far, but it's really not the case. So it was a bit of a shock that he wasn't selected for that tournament, because he's been a starter really in almost all the tournaments since the 2018 2018 World Cup, I should say. In the 2025 Gold Cup, he returned, having not been selected for the Copa America the year before, and he was a starter in that tournament. Recently, Jesus Gallardo has started 3 of their 6 games in the fall of 2025. He was subbed in for 2 and on the bench for the one other. So that is Jesus Gallardo, a definite candidate. We have a likely candidate in Mateo Chavez. He has been with Mexico just since 2025 with 7 caps now and no goals. He's just 22 years old, and he was selected for the Gold Cup in 2025 there. He actually wasn't the starter, but basically he started the games when Gallardo was not available. So that was games 3 and 5 there. Yes. And he, over the recent period, started 3 of the 6 games in the fall of 2025 and was on the bench for the 3 others. So it looks like, more and more he's kind of sharing duties with Jesus Gallardo there. And we go down to our possible but unlikely candidate, Jesus Alberto Angulo. He's been with Mexico since 2018 and has 19 caps with the team, and is 28 years old, but has never been selected for a tournament. He was selected for their Olympic squad in 2020. I think the Olympics took place in 2021 because of COVID. But yeah, surprisingly, he's been on most of the preliminary squads for these tournaments, but never actually played in a tournament for Mexico. But has been called up since 2018 and last appeared for Mexico in March of 2025. So still kind of in the mix is Jesus Alberto Angulo. And let's move on to our 2 seemingly off the squads players. Gerardo Arteaga has been involved in a couple of tournaments, most recently the 2024 Copa America, where he was a starter, but that was his last appearance for Mexico. And then the other one is Brian Gonzalez, also on the squad for the 2024 Copa America, but not selected, a bit surprisingly, not selected for the uh, Gold Cup in 2025. Actually, I say a bit surprisingly because what I have here is he was surprisingly not selected for their 60-man preliminary squad. So we might have expected him to be on the preliminary squad there. Anyway, Brian Gonzalez last appeared on the bench in October of 2024, so seems to be off the team. All right, that's it for left backs, and we move over to the right side. And here we meet the player I mentioned as sometimes playing as a central defender, and that is Israel Reyes. He is at the likely level for us here. Also at the likely level is Jorge Sanchez. And then we have a possible candidate in Kevin Alvarez. Excuse me, I had to cough there. And then we have two players seemingly off the squad here, Brian Garcia and Alan Mozo. Let's go back to the top and take a look at Israel Reyes. He's been with Mexico since 2021 with 27 caps and 2 goals. He's 26 years old, and he's been with America in Mexico, Club America, since 2023 and has played for a couple of other teams before that. Atlas was his youth club. His first tournament was the 2023 Gold Cup. He's been involved in every tournament since. Only in 2025 in the Gold Cup, though, was he a starter, at least for games 1 and 2. He lost his starting position after that. And over the recent period, in the fall of 2025, he started 3 of their 6 games and was on the bench for 1. And not selected for 2 matches. Those were the September games. So Israel Reyes, we consider a likely candidate here. And the other likely candidate is Jorge Sanchez. He's been with Mexico since 2019 with 54 caps and 2 goals and is 29 years old now. He's moved to Cruz Azul in Mexico in 2024, so he's been with them since. Prior to that, he was with Ajax in the Netherlands for 2 years, also loaned to Porto in Portugal during that European stint. And prior to that, he was in Mexico with Club America from 2018 to 2022. Jorge Sanchez's first tournament was the 2022 World Cup. He was a starter there in game 1, not in game 2, but games 1 and 3. He was a starter in most of the tournaments since, including the 2024 Copa America. So there we go. We do have some of the A team playing in that Copa America. In the 2025 Gold Cup, he started half of the games there. And over the recent period, started 2 of their 6 games, Jorge Sanchez, subbed in for 1 and was on the bench for 1, but not selected for the last 2 matches. So seems to be, well, at least drifting out of the starting spot there, but not selected for the last 2 matches, perhaps a bit of a concern because he has been drifting a little bit. Next, we have possible candidate Kevin Alvarez. Been with Mexico since 2021 with 16 caps and 1 goal, and he's 27 years old. He plays for America, Club America in Mexico since 2023 and was with Pachuca for 5 years before that. Pachuca is his youth club as well. Kevin Alvarez's first tournament was the 2021 Gold Cup. He was on the bench for that and the 2022 World Cup, but not called up for any of the 3 tournaments after that. Actually, he had an infection that left him out of the 2024 Copa America, or kind of precluded his consideration there, but not selected for the 2023 or the 2025 Gold Cups there. He returned after a 2-year absence, though, recently in October of 2025 and started, well, didn't start any of the 4 games there, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 3. So kind of coming back into the picture, perhaps, well, it looks like he was replacing Jorge Sanchez there. but we need to see if that is the trend going forward. We'll have a bit of insight into that when we get to part two. Let's look at our two seemingly off the squad players. Brian Garcia, he last appeared in the 2024 Copa America, and Alan Mozo last appeared in September of 2024. We'll get more details on them in part two if we find that they're selected for the final squad. All right, that is the end of our look at the defense, and we move upfield to the midfield. We're going to start with defensive midfielders here. And here we meet the captain of the team, Edson Alvarez, as a definite candidate, and another definite candidate in Eric Lira. And finally, we have a possible candidate, Fidel Ambriz. Actually, before introducing the players, I should have talked about the midfield a little bit. We saw in section one that they favor a 4-3-3 midfield formation. And so that does look like kind of a central midfielder, the right and left midfielder. But really, all of the players I'm going to introduce in the next four sections kind of could be found anywhere in the midfield. Some do favor the center, like Edson Alvarez, and some do favor the right, like Eric Sanchez. But we're going according to their coding here. But keep in mind that basically they could appear anywhere in the midfield. I think we'll introduce the defensive midfielders here, and then the central midfielders separately, even though there's really not a lot of separation between them. Let's take a look then at our definite candidate, Edson Alvarez. He has been with Mexico since 2017 with 96 caps and 6 goals. He's 28 years old. And his first tournament was the Gold Cup in 2017, and he was actually a starter in that tournament, though not in the World Cup that followed. He's subbed into game one there and then gained a starting position. So he's become an increasingly more important player for them. By the 2021 Gold Cup, he was the starter from game one. And in the 2024 Copa America, he was captain of the team there, and was starter in that tournament, but actually suffered an injury which ended his tournament. He was back, though, for the 2025 Gold Cup and started and finished all 6 games. In fact, he won the Golden Ball Award there for best player of the tournament. So a very good performance by Edson Alvarez. Recently, he started 2 of their 6 games after that Gold Cup. He subbed in for 1, was injured for 1, and not selected for 2. But that doesn't shake our faith that he is a definite candidate for the team here. He is captain after all. So that's Edson Alvarez. And the other definite candidate here is Eric Lira. He's been with Mexico since 2021 with 17 caps and no goals. He's 26 years old. And Lira plays for Cruz Azul in Mexico since 2022 there. And I won't go into his history beyond that. He's actually been around, since 2021, but not selected for the 2022 Gold Cup, the 2022 World Cup, 2023 Gold Cup, or the 2024 Copa America. So the Gold Cup in 2025 was his first tournament there. And over the recent period, Eric Lira started 5 of the 6 games and subbed in for the other ones. So seems to be becoming more of a starter, having been not even selected for squads kind of early on in his career with Mexico there. So Eric Lira looking like a definite candidate right now. And then we go down to our possible candidate, Fidel Ambriz. He's been with Mexico since 2024, but just 1 cap for them. He's 23 years old, and wasn't actually even selected for the preliminary squad. That's a huge 60-man preliminary squad for the 2025 Gold Cup, but he didn't make it there. Actually, he returned after a 14-month absence right at the end here in November 2025 Didn't start either of those games, but was on the bench for both. So, yes, when they appear at the end like that, it's difficult for us to know how strongly they're being considered. So, we usually put them at the possible level. Okay, those are our players coded as defensive midfielders, and we'll move on to the ones that are coded as central midfielders. Orbelin Pineda is a definite candidate. He is actually a bit difficult to pin down in terms of position because sometimes he plays as a left midfielder. We've even seen him play as a forward, but we'll put him here, Orbelin Pineda. I do think he does favour the left side there. We also have a definite candidate in Marcel Ruiz. And then none at the likely level, so we go down to the possible level where we have Luis Chavez and Carlos Alberto Rodriguez. Actually, we have two more at the possible level, Luis Romo and Obed Vargas, all four of those players at the possible level. And then we go down to one player seemingly off the squad, Andres Montana. Okay, let's take a look at the main players here. We have Orbelin Pineda, been with Mexico since 2016 with 89 caps and 12 goals, and he is actually only just 30 years old there. So he joined Mexico when he was 20. He's playing abroad for AEK Athens in Greece since 2023 and was with Celta de Vigo in Spain. Before that, he moved over to Europe in 2021, having been with Cruz Azul in Mexico for 2 years before that, and then a couple of other Mexican teams. In terms of tournaments, the Gold Cup in 2017 was his first tournament, subbed into game one and gained a starting position there, but not selected for the 2018 World Cup. However, Pineda has been selected for every tournament since. Never really fully gained a starting position, except for the 2023 Gold Cup, where he started all the games and was named to the team of the tournament there. That was a good tournament for him, but otherwise has been on the fringes of being a starter. Over the recent period, Orbelin Pineda started 3 of their 6 games. He subbed into 1 and was on the bench for 2 others. So in terms of selection, he looks like a definite candidate. But in terms of being a starter, that's a different conversation, which really we'll get into more in part 2. Let's look at the other definite candidate, Marcel Ruiz. Has been with Mexico since 2023 with 17 caps, and he is 24 years old. Even though he was with the team since 2023, it took until 2025 to reach his first tournament, so not selected for the 2023 Gold Cup or the Copa America in 2024. And in the recent Gold Cup, he was on the bench for game 1, but gained a starting position after that, and really has come into the team, getting on the field for every game really since then. He started 4 of the 6 recent games in the fall of 2025 and subbed in for the 2 others. So Marcel Ruiz looking like a definite candidate here. Next, we go to the first of our 4 possible candidates, beginning with Luis Chavez. He has been with Mexico since 2022, but has amassed 42 caps and 4 goals for the 30-year-old. He plays for Dynamo Moscow in Russia since 2023 and was with Pachuca for 4 years before that. And I think I forgot to give Marcel Ruiz's club information. He's been with Toluca since 2022, Toluca in Mexico, Marcel Ruiz. But let's go back to Luis Chavez. Yes, Dynamo Moscow is where he's at right now. And he was actually a starter for the 2022 World Cup and for the 2 tournaments after that, 2023 Gold Cup, 2024 Copa America. However, for the 2025 Gold Cup, he was a sub and furthermore got injured in training, a fairly serious injury in training there, and has not started any of the games. He's been injured since then. So he is scheduled to return from the injury in March of 2026. So that was a pretty long term injury for Luis Chavez. We'll have to see in part two. So we have him as a possible candidate right now, but he could well kind of come back into the starting position that he used to have. He was very good in the 2023 Gold Cup. He was on the team of the tournament there. So Luis Chavez, if he's in form, they'd certainly like to have him back. The second possible candidate is Carlos Alberto Rodriguez. He's been with Mexico since 2019 with 57 caps and no goals. He's 28 years old. He plays for Cruz Azul in Mexico since 2022 and has been part of tournaments since the 2019 Gold Cup. The only one he missed was the 2021 Gold Cup, where he didn't make the final cut, having been on the preliminary squad. For the most part, though, Carlos Alberto Rodriguez has been a bench player, although he has been called up for the tournaments. Over the recent period, it's the same thing. He didn't start any of the 6 games, but he was subbed in for 3 and on the bench for 1, but not selected for the last 2 matches. So Carlos Alberto Rodriguez, just a possible candidate here. Another very experienced player is our third possible candidate, Luis Romo. Been with Mexico since 2019 with 58 caps and 4 goals. He's 31 years old and recently moved to Guadalajara in Mexico since 2025. And that actually has been with several teams over the past few years, never really settling with one team. So he was with Cruz Azul 3 times, actually. That was his youth club. And with Monterrey 2022 to 2024. So Luis Romo, having played for several Mexican squads there. His first tournament was the World Cup in 2022. He didn't see any action in that tournament, but for the 2023 Gold Cup, he was a starter, starting all 6 games. Just a sub in the Copa America 2024 and not selected for the 2025 Gold Cup. Actually, he and the team agreed to give him a rest from the tournament here. So that leaves him as a possible candidate for us. He did return actually after the Gold Cup and started 1 of the remaining 4 games, having returned in October. Started 1, subbed into 1, and not selected for the last 2 matches. So we don't know if that means he's drifting off the squad or whether he'll kind of come back into the starting position that he occupied for the 2023 Gold Cup. So all of these players seem to have potential for a comeback and a bigger role than they've been playing recently. Finally, we have Obed Vargas as a 4th possible candidate, and he's been with Mexico since 2024 with 2 caps for the national team. He's just 21 years old and plays for Atletico Madrid in Spain. That's a recent move in 2026, having been with the Seattle Sounders in America before that for 5 years. Actually, that was his youth club. Obed Vargas was born in Alaska in the USA, but basically committed to Mexico in 2024. He hasn't been through any tournaments, though. In fact, he was not selected even for the preliminary squad for the 2025 Gold Cup there. He returned after a 13-month absence in November of 2025. Didn't start either of the games, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1. So I think what happened with him, given that he played for USA youth clubs, is that he was deciding between Mexico and Spain. And that cap he played in 2024 didn't commit him to Spain. So I actually don't think he is committed to, sorry, I kept saying Spain there, I meant Mexico. I think he actually is still free to join the USA because he's only played in friendlies. But it looks like He was playing, he was on the Mexican squad there at the end of 2025 recently. So, Obed Vargas, maybe we can see in part two there. But looks like a great candidate playing with Atletico Madrid there. All right, that's our four possible candidates. Let's move to the seemingly off the squad, Andres Montano. And he is really just one cap for the national team since 2024. Last appeared in June of 2024. So we leave it at that for him now. Let's go. With Mexico, we have a few players coded as left and right midfielders. Perhaps that's because they still use a 4-3-3 formation. This is the way they're coded, though, but it doesn't exactly line up. For example, our first candidate for left midfielder is Diego Lainez, and the only start he got over the period was as a right winger. So we may end up recoding him once he's played more games. Anyway, for left midfielders, we have Diego Lainez as a likely candidate. We have Angel Sepulveda as a possible candidate here. And then two players seemingly off the squad, Eric Aguirre. And, well, we have Andres Guardado on the list here, but I'm not sure he should be. Let's look at the likely ones, and then I'll clarify that when we get to him. Our likely candidate then, Diego Lainez, been with Mexico since 2018 with 32 caps and 3 goals. He's 26 years old, and he plays for Tigres in Mexico since 2023. And prior to that, he was with Real Betis in Spain for 4 years. But he was loaned out to a couple of teams there. Diego Lainez's first tournament was the 2023 Gold Cup, even though he had gotten his first cap 5 years earlier. His first and only tournament then, the 2023 Gold Cup, where he subbed into 2 games and not selected for a tournament since then. He has been around, though. Recently, he returned after a 10-month absence in September of 2025 and started 1 of the remaining 6 games, subbed in for 2 and was on the bench for 3. So consistently called up since the 2025 Gold Cup. And so we're viewing Diego Lainez as a likely candidate at this point. Next, we have Angel Sepulveda. And he's a possible candidate, been with Mexico since way back in 2016, but only 12 caps and 3 goals for him. He's 35 years old now. He's in his second stint with Guadalajara in Mexico. That's a recent move since 2026, and has played for several teams in Mexico, Cruz Azul from 2023 to 25, and various teams before that. It's actually his second stint with Guadalajara here. And he was part of the squad for the 2017 Gold Cup. But he was off the team for 7 years, kind of came back and was selected for the 2025 Gold Cup as a substitute in that tournament. However, that is his last appearance for the national team, but that was only last summer, so we still think he's a possible candidate, Angel Sepulveda. Angel Sepulveda. Next, we have 2 seemingly off the squad players. Eric Aguirre has never actually been selected for a tournament, even though he first appeared in 2018, but has been in and out of the squad, last appearing in March of 2024. Eric Aguirre. And then let's see why we have Andres Guardado on the list, a veteran player for the team, 182 caps, if you can believe it, and is 40 years old now. And his last appearance was in October 2024, actually came back after a 2-year absence to appear in that. And but that might have been kind of a ceremonial game. He had announced his retirement in mid-May 2023. So Yeah, just one appearance there in October of 2024. Whether that was kind of it's not called ceremonial, but kind of a game in honor of him, as it were. So Andres Guardado really is off the squad there. Uh, And yes, I see now he's actually retired from club soccer, playing for Leon in Mexico for the last year of his career, but now actually not with the club. Okay, so those are players coded as left midfielders. We have two coded as right midfielders. I mentioned one of them before, Eric Sanchez. He's a likely candidate, and he usually does play as a right midfielder. And then we have Rodrigo Huescas as a possible candidate. So let's look at Eric Sanchez, been with Mexico since 2021 with 35 caps and 3 goals. He's 27 years old and plays for America in Mexico. Club America since 2024 and was with Pachuca for 8 years before that. Pachuca also his youth club. The 2021 Gold Cup was Eric Sanchez's first tournament, but he wasn't selected for the 2022 World Cup after that. The only tournament he was actually a starter in was the 2023 Gold Cup. He started half the games there. He was selected for the 2024 Copa America, but not for the 2025 Gold Cup. But he did return after a 14-month absence and started 3 of their remaining 6 games over the period, as well as subbing in for the 3 others. So Eric Sanchez making a bit of a comeback here, and we're seeing him as a likely candidate to be named to the squad. Finally, for this end of the midfielders, we have Rodrigo Huescas, and he's been with Mexico since 2024 with 3 caps. He's 23 years old and has not been called up to a tournament. He plays for, sorry, I got ahead of myself a bit there, plays for Copenhagen in Denmark since 2024 and was with Cruz Azul before that, which was his youth club also. But yes, not selected for the 2024 Copa America or the 2025 Gold Cup. He came back, though, after the Gold Cup, having not been called up for 6 months. Came back in September and started one of their remaining 6 games and was on the bench for one. But then he was injured for the last 4 matches. And actually, that injury is probably going to prevent his consideration for the Cup. It's a cruciate ligament injury from early October 2025, but he's not expected back until June 30th, 2026. So that will be too late for the Cup. And we don't expect then him to overcome that injury in time. All right, there it is. The kind of more defensive end of the midfield. We're moving up now to the attacking end of the midfield. And I'll just say in this that we've kind of created the category of left attacker and right attacker ourselves. That could be a winger in a 4-4-2 formation, a attacking midfielder in a 4-2-3-1 formation, or, as is often the case for Mexico, a forward, a right or left forward in a 4-3-3 formation. We just find that generally it's the same players in those positions. So we found that categorization quite useful. We start on the left side, then left attacking midfielders with a likely candidate, no definite candidate over here, but a likely candidate in Irving Lozano. And also likely is Alexis Vega. Then we have a possible candidate in Julian Quinones, and another one in Cesar Huerta, and then just one candidate seemingly off the squad, Jordan Carrillo. Okay, let's go back and look at Irving Lozano. Been with Mexico since 2016 with 75 caps and 18 goals. So another veteran for the squad. He's 31 years old. Currently playing for San Diego FC in the USA since 2025 and was with PSV Eindhoven. Well, it was actually his second stint with them. He joined in 2017, went to play for Napoli in Italy for 4 years until 2023, and then rejoined PSV Eindhoven there. Irving Lozano, his first tournament was the 2016 Copa America Centenario. He's been called up for most of the tournaments since, a starter in the 2018 World Cup, injured for the 2019 Gold Cup, and for the 2023 Gold Cup. In between there, he was a starter in the 2022 World Cup as well. So he has been fit for the World Cups, but injured for a couple of Gold Cups. But actually, since the 2022 World Cup, he hasn't been called up for any of the three tournaments. He has been called up for some games in between, but returned after a year and a half absence in September of 2025 and started three of the six games, as well as subbing in for two. But he wasn't selected for the last match. But Irving Lozano is a big name. I think if he's fit, he has a good chance, and that's part of our reasoning for putting him as a likely candidate. Next, we have Alexis Vega. Just fixing a mistake I made on the graphics there. Alexis Vega is the second likely candidate here. He has been with Mexico since 2019 with 48 caps and 7 goals, and is 29 years old. And he was part of the Gold Cup squad in 2019. That was his first tournament. Was selected and a starter in the 2022 World Cup there. But in the two recent cups, the 2024 Copa America and the 2025 Gold Cup, he was a bench, or at least started on the bench. In 2025, he gained a position, gained a starting position in game two, Alexis Vega. So fundamentally a starter, but not in the first game for the recent Gold Cup. Alexis Vega started the first two of their six games after that Gold Cup, but then was subbed in for two and then not selected for the last two matches. So perhaps we're being a bit generous putting him as a likely candidate here, but we'll stick with that for now. But really, the only tournament he was a starter in was the 2022 World Cup, and hasn't been kind of that consistently called up. Anyway, the first of our possible candidates is Julian Quinones. He's been with Mexico since 2023. He has 18 caps and 2 goals and is 29 years old. He's playing in Saudi Arabia, actually, for Al Qadsiya since 2024. He moved there from Mexico. He was with Club America in Mexico, and several clubs actually. Prior to moving to Saudi Arabia, Julian Quinones was actually born in Colombia. His first tournament for Mexico was the 2024 Copa America. He was a starter in that one, but just a substitute in the 2025 Gold Cup there. And recently he started one of their six games there in the fall of 2025, subbed in for one, but he was injured for the last two and not selected for the first two. So just actually not participating that much. He has, though, recovered from the injury that kept him out of the November games. And all in all, it boiled down to us putting Julian Quinones at the possible level. Next, we have at the possible level Cesar Huerta, and he's been with Mexico since 2023, but has 25 caps and 3 goals for them. He's 26 years old. He plays for Anderlecht in Belgium since 2025 and was with Unam Pumas prior to that, and with Guadalajara from 2018 to 2022. Guadalajara was his youth club. Cesar Huerta's first tournament was the 2024 Copa America, just a substitute in that tournament, as well as the 2025 Gold Cup. And recently didn't start any of their games in the fall of 2025, just subbed in for one and on the bench for one. He was not selected for two of them, and he was injured for the last two in November. So Cesar Huerta actually out with a groin injury since early November, and an unknown return date on that at this point. So we can update that in part two. And we'll also summarize it in section 3 at the end of this media cast. Finally, we look at our seemingly off the squad, Jordan Carrillo. Been with Mexico since 2022, but never called up for a tournament, and last appeared on the bench in June of 2024. So those are our left attacking options. And over on the right side, we begin. We also have no definite candidate over here. We begin with Roberto Alvarado. Actually, on the right side here, they've used 5 different players in the position over the last 6 games. Irving Lozano, who we introduced as a left attacker, did play on the right for one of his 3 starts there. Anyway, Roberto Alvarado, a likely candidate here. We'll list the players and then talk about them. Jorge Ruvalcaba is a possible candidate here. And we have, then we go down to seemingly off the squad players, Uriel Antuna and Jordi Cortizo. So let us go back and take a look. Roberto Alvarado, yet another very experienced player since 2018 with Mexico. 63 caps and 5 goals for him, and he's 28 years old, playing for Guadalajara in Mexico since 2022, and 4 teams before that, so kind of switches teams fairly regularly. Roberto Alvarado has been involved in tournaments since the 2019 Gold Cup. The only one he wasn't selected for actually was the 2021 Gold Cup on the preliminary squad, but didn't make the final squad there. But part of the World Cup 2022 team. However, the only one he's been a starter in were the 2019 and then recently the 2025 Gold Cups, Roberto Alvarado. Over the recent period, he started 2 of their 6 games. He was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1, and then not selected for 2 of the matches there. So Roberto Alvarado, a likely candidate here, but they do struggle to kind of find their starting player. So we do see some out of position players coming into this position. But we'll talk about that more in part 2, where we consider starters. We consider Roberto Alvarado likely to be selected for the squad, but that doesn't really say that he's going to be a starter. Okay, Jorge Ruvalcaba is new to Mexico since 2025, just 1 cap for him. He's 24 years old, or 25, I should say. He's an American-born player, and he plays for New York Red Bulls in USA since 2026. But he was playing in Mexico for UNAM Pumas before that, although he was loaned out to Standard Liège in Belgium, not their A team, I think. Ruvalcaba came onto our radar when he was named to the preliminary squad for the 2025 Gold Cup. He got his first appearance for Mexico just very recently in November 2025, and didn't start either of the games. It was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1. So perhaps they're another player not yet committed or eligible for USA and Mexico, and not yet committed to either one. But it does look like Mexico is going to be his choice here. Again, part 2, we may have more information on that. Jorge Ruvalcaba, then, a possible candidate. The first of our 2 seemingly off the squad players is Uriel Antuna, a veteran with 65 caps and 14 goals since 2019, and just 29 years old. But we won't go into too much detail because he last appeared in the 2024 Copa America there. So again, we'll get more information if he ends up being selected. Our other seemingly off the squad player is Jordi Cortizo. and he's been with Mexico since 2023 and was part of the Copa America squad in 2024. However, that was his last appearance for the Mexican national team. Okay, our last midfield position is central attacking midfielders, and here we have Gilberto Mora as a likely candidate. Again, no definite candidates here, which does kind of betray the fact that things are not fully settled up here. Excuse me. And my list is missing the name of the next player, so I gotta go find it. It's Efrain Alvarez. Next, he is the first of our two possible candidates, Efrain Alvarez, and the other one is Alexis Gutierrez. There, we have Brian Gutierrez as a possible but unlikely candidate, and finally Sebastian Cordoba, seemingly off the squad there. Let's take a look, beginning with our likely candidate, Gilberto Mora. He's been new to Mexico since 2025 with 5 caps and no goals. He is just 18 years old. And yes, made a bit of an impression in the Gold Cup in 2025. He didn't appear in the group stages and then gained a starting position for games 4, 5, and 6, and became the youngest player to ever start for Mexico. So a bit of an exciting player here. He's with Tijuana in Mexico since 2024. That was his youth club as well. So yes, exciting there. Not that he played particularly well. He played reasonably well. Uh, Over the recent period, though, he only started one of their 6 games, and he was subbed in for one, and not selected for 3 of the matches. So perhaps I was a bit more taken with him than the manager was, because not selected for 3 others. So yeah, maybe we're a bit generous putting him as a possible or as a likely candidate here. The only start he got, by the way, was as a right midfielder in that 4-3-3 formation, but he is coded as an attacking midfielder, Gilberto Mora. Next, we have Efrain Alvarez, and he's been with Mexico since 2021 with 7 caps and 1 goal, and is 24 years old. He recently made a step up to Guadalajara in Mexico since 2025. He was with Tijuana in Mexico for 2 years before that, and with LA Galaxy prior to that. He is an American-born player. Efrain Alvarez played for the American under-15 team. However, for Mexico, he was part of their 2021 Gold Cup squad, just a substitute, but then not called up for the 3 tournaments after that, or not selected for the World Cup in 2022, the Gold Cup in 2023, or the Copa America in 2024. However, he was selected for the 2025 Gold Cup there, but actually didn't see any field action there, and that was his last appearance for the national team. So hard to say where things are at for Efrain Alvarez. We have him as a possible candidate here. The other possible candidate is Alexis Gutierrez. He's been with Mexico since 2024 with 5 caps and no goals, and he's 26 years old. Playing for Club America in Mexico since 2025. That's a fairly recent move. He'd been with Cruz Azul in Mexico for 6 years before that. Was on the preliminary roster for the 2025 Gold Cup, but not selected. Actually had been off the team for 11 months prior to coming back in October 2025, and didn't start any of the 4 remaining games, but was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 3 others. So Alexis Gutierrez seems to be under consideration, and we have him as a possible candidate. Possible but unlikely, and new on our radar, and that's why his name is in orange on the YouTube graphic here, is Brian Gutierrez. He's new to the team. actually played for USA, 2 caps for USA. So another player kind of between both teams and probably not committed yet. Uh, he got his first cap for Mexico in January of 2026. So I think we decided to include him here just to put his name in there. His name actually had been on our radar for the American team. That's why we're aware of him. So Brian Gutierrez, possible but unlikely at this point. We'll have to see how much he does play between now and the World Cup. And finally, we have seemingly off the squad Sebastian Cordoba, been with Mexico since 2019 with 18 caps for them, but has never been called up for a tournament there other than the Olympic team in 2021. However, he's kind of popped up here and there. Last appeared in October of 2024, Sebastian Cordova. So he seems to be off the squad. Okay, that's it for the midfield. We move on to the forward line. We do have a player coded as a secondary striker, so we'll deal with him before looking at the centre forwards. It's Henry Martin, who sometimes does play as a centre forward, if truth be told, but he is seemingly off the squad. So we won't go into too much detail on him, but he was a starter in the 2022 World Cup and the 2023 Gold Cup there, but last appeared for the team in November of 2024. So Henry Martin seemingly off the squad again. He and other players like him, who we don't spend much time on, we will spend a bit more time if they are selected for the final squad, and we'll do that in part 2. Let's move on to our last category, the forwards, basically centre forwards there. And here we have Raul Jimenez as a definite candidate, and we have Santiago Jimenez as a likely candidate. We have another likely candidate in newcomer German Berterame there, and then a possible candidate, also a newcomer, Armando Gonzalez. So we'll talk a little bit about those, introduce those newcomers to you. Finally, we have one player seemingly off the squad, Guillermo Martinez. So let's go back. Well, Raul Jimenez has a long history with Mexico. He's a Centurion with 123 caps and 44 goals since 2013, and he's now 35 years old. And yeah, we won't go into his long history with the cup. But way back in 2012, he won an Olympic gold medal with the team in the Olympics, and has been an important player for them. Seemed to be fading out after he suffered a horrible fractured skull in December of 2020 while going up for a header there, but has made a comeback since then. He was part of the World Cup 2022 squad, but just a substitute, and yeah, didn't really wasn't back to form there, and was not selected actually for the 2023 Gold Cup and the 2024 Copa America. There was some mention of him being injured for the 2023 Gold Cup. Anyway, he came back into full force in the 2025 Gold Cup. Named to the team of the tournament there, and really has been impressive, back to form over the last couple of years. Recently, he started 4 of their 6 games and was injured for the other 2. But he has recovered from that injury and available for Mexico. So Raul Jimenez reinstating himself as a major player for the team and a definite candidate here. Next, we have Santiago Jimenez at the likely level. He's been with Mexico since 2021 and has 45 caps and 6 goals, and is 25 years old. He was on the preliminary squad, Santiago Jimenez, for the 2022 World Cup. Didn't make the final cup cut there, but has been selected for all of the tournaments since, and was actually a starter in the 2024 Copa America. And was a starter for the first game in the 2025 Gold Cup, but he lost his starting position in that tournament. Over the recent period, he has started one of the six games, subbed in for three, and was injured for the last two matches. I'm going to talk about that injury, but I realize I forgot to give his club information there. He plays for AC Milan in Italy, but despite that good club affiliation, has been more of a substitute for Mexico. Prior to AC Milan, he was with Feyenoord in the Netherlands, and then with Cruz Azul in Mexico since, or from 2017 to 2022, and that was his youth club as well. Uh, okay, sorry, Santiago Jimenez. There we go. I was a bit all over the place, I must admit, in that description. Anyway, it all boils down to him being a likely candidate here. Let's look at the other likely candidate, German Berterame. Has been with Mexico since 2024 and has 9 caps for them. He is no youngster. He's 28 years old, so a bit late in joining the team. Actually was born in Argentina, so perhaps waited before giving his allegiance there to Mexico. German Berterame plays for Inter Miami in the USA since 2016, but was with Monterrey in Mexico for 4 years before that. He's also played for Atletico Madrid in Spain in 2022 and for San Lorenzo in Argentina from 2016 to 19. I shouldn't have said he played for Atletico Madrid. He didn't actually play any games for them, but he was on their roster. German Berterame returned after an 11-month absence in September 2025 and started 2 of the remaining 6 games, as well as subbing in for 3 and on the bench for 1 other. So a good candidate here. We consider him likely to make the squad. At the possible level, we have Armando Gonzalez. He's also new on our radar. 6 caps and 1 goal for Mexico since 2025, and he's 23 years old, playing for Guadalajara in Mexico since 2024, and a much smaller club prior to that, Tapatio in Mexico there. He got his first appearance on the bench very recently in November of 2025. He didn't start either of those games, but he was subbed in for 1 and on the bench for 1. So Armando Gonzalez, a possible candidate here. Finally, we have Guillermo Martinez, and we won't go into too much detail. He was selected for the 2024 Copa America, and he subbed into all 3 of their games there. But last appeared for Mexico in November of 2024. So that is it, our look at the squads, and it brings us to the end of part 2 and into part 3. So we want to welcome listeners to the short version of the mediacast here, and what we're going to do is start section 3 with a quick review of the candidates and their likelihood, which was what we did in part 2 in more detail. We were introducing the players there, and after that we'll have some other concluding matters. But let's go back to the top of the list and race through what we got. For the manager, we have Javier Aguirre. We're considering him a definite candidate. We don't think they'll change before the cup. On to goalkeepers, we have a definite candidate in Luis Malagon and Raul Rangel, and a likely candidate in Carlos Acevedo. We won't go into players at the possible but unlikely level or the seemingly off the squad level, except for goalkeepers here, because I do want to say that Guillermo Ochoa, the veteran goalkeeper, is possible but unlikely here. Moving to central defence, we have 2 definite candidates, Cesar Montes and Johan Vasquez. Those are both at the definite level, not at the likely level. But at the possible level, Jesus Orozco and Ramon Juarez, both of those. So a bit thin on central defenders. I'll talk about that in closing thoughts. We move on to left back here. We have a definite candidate in Jesus Gallardo and a likely candidate in Mateo Chavez there. And that's all we have at the possible level or above. So over to right backs. No definite candidate over here, but two likely candidates, Israel Reyes and Jorge Sanchez. We also have a possible candidate in Kevin Alvarez on the right back position. And that's it for defense. Up to defensive midfielders. And we have Captain Edson Alvarez as a definite candidate. Also definite Eric Lira. None at the likely level, but at the possible level, we have Fidel Ambriz. We're going by kind of the coding they have, although most of these players may appear anywhere in the midfield. Players coded as central midfielders, we have Orbelin Pineda as a definite candidate, as well as Marcel Ruiz. No candidates at the likely level, but four at the possible level: Luis Chavez, Carlos Alberto Rodriguez, Luis Romo, and Obed Vargas there. We also have players coded as left and right midfielders. Let's look at the left midfielders. It's Diego Lainez at the likely level, and then at the possible level, Angel Sepulveda. Right midfielders, we have a candidate at the likely level, Eric Sanchez, and a possible candidate, Rodrigo Huescas. Upfield, we go to the left attacking midfielders, and we have no definite candidate, but a likely candidate in Irving Lozano and also Alexis Vega. And then at the possible level, we have Julian Quinones and Cesar Huerta. Right attackers, again, here, no definite candidate, but we have a likely candidate with Robert Alvarado, and then possible candidate Jorge Ruvalcaba. And then players coded as central attacking midfielders. Again, no definite, but a likely candidate in Gilberto Mora. We were perhaps a bit generous putting him at the likely level, but there he is. And two possible candidates, Efrain Alvarez and Alexis Gutierrez. Moving up to forwards. For centre forwards, we have definite candidate Raul Jimenez, and then two likely candidates in Santiago Jimenez and German Bertarame. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his name there. And also a possible candidate in newcomer Armando Gonzalez. So those are our current options as forwards. That brings us to the end of our review of the candidate. Let's move on to big names off the squad. Well, we did Mexico for the 2025 Gold Cup, which was just a half a year ago. And we generally go from one cup to the next. So in short, Mexico has no big names off the squad. Well, that we know of, because some of the names we've mentioned here may not be selected. But we have no big names off the squad during this period. We have a lot of business to do in injuries, though, to review injuries. So we begin with defensive midfielder and captain of the team, Edson Alvarez, out with an ankle injury and then for surgery since late January. However, he is expected back on May 18th, which is roughly a month before the Cup begins. The concern there is that his club season will be over, so will he get a chance to regain his fitness? He is captain of the team, though, so we do expect him to be selected. He's a definite candidate, by the way. Next, we have our likely candidate and forward, Santiago Jimenez. He is out for ankle surgery, but is expected back in mid-March of 2026. So we can put him in the expected back category as well. Next, we have Luis Chavez, the central midfielder, a possible candidate for us. He suffered an injury during the 2025 Gold Cup in training there, and is expected back in March of 2026. So, Luis Chavez, part of the reason he was just a possible candidate is because he's been out with that injury. So, they'll hope he'll be able to return to form. And if he does, I think he would be more than just a possible candidate. Next, we have Cesar Huerta, left attacking midfielder, who's also a possible candidate. He's been out with a groin injury since early November and an unknown return date on him. So we'll have to put Cesar Huerta as an unknown here, and hopefully we'll be able to update this in part 2. And finally, we have Rodrigo Huescas, coded as a right midfielder and a possible candidate for us. He's out with a cruciate ligament injury from early October 2025. In his case, he's not expected back until June 30th, 2026. So it looks like that injury is going to put him out of contention here. So we considered him a possible candidate irrespective of that injury, but it looks like the injury will cost him a spot. Closing thoughts for Mexico? Well, they have a lot of very experienced players who really haven't been playing for them that much recently. Perhaps part of the problem is that the CONCACAF teams have been playing a tournament every year, every summer since the 2021 Gold Cup, I guess. Perhaps earlier in 2020. The Gold Cup is every 2 years. They had the World Cup in 2022, even though that was in the winter. So I'm kind of contradicting myself. But the Copa America 2024 that year. So I wonder if some of these players, drop out for some of the tournament, but whether they will be back and anxious to play in the World Cup. Of course they would. So a little bit hard to say how in or off the squad those players were. They certainly have a lot of experience to draw from, but they haven't really, got a solid team or a consistent group of players that they've been playing with. So there is that. Also in central defense, we see only really 4 viable candidates at the moment. So a bit concerning because usually they want to bring 5 or 6 defenders, central defenders. They are or did actually play a couple of games in January and February of 2026. We haven't looked closely at those games, but we think that they will be doing some recruitment during those games. So we think there's a lot of decisions to be made for Mexico, and perhaps the March games will give us some insight as to who's going to be chosen, as well as, of course, the pre-tournament games there too. All right, that's our closing thoughts. Let's move on to our preview of part 2 here. So part 2 is going to come out when we know what the final squad is going to be. If they do produce a preliminary squad, we'll let you know who was on it. We'll focus on the surprises there, any notable non-selections or unexpected inclusions, and of course any new players. Mexico doesn't have a lot right now, but perhaps those January, February games will produce a few candidates. So we'll cover the surprises on the final squad. We'll give an update on the injuries of these players and any new injuries that happen between then and the World Cup, which may affect the choices. And finally, we will give our prediction of starters. We didn't focus on that much in part 1 here, but it will be a bit of a focus there in part 2. So that brings us to the end, and hope you enjoyed it. Our hope is that, knowing who the players are on the field and knowing a bit about them kind of increases enjoyment of the cup, and that's why we do this. So we hope you join us for part 2 of Mexico and for our look at other teams. We would like to thank Michael Foster and Pixabay for the wonderful music in this mediacast. The title of the piece used is Look to the Sky, Tribal Dance Beats Native American.